Deputy Willie Penrose.
First of all, thank you, Kincorum, for that opportunity to contribute to this, and I want to compliment Deputy Lynch on bringing forward. This is one of the most important and practical resolutions to be placed before the House for a long number of years, and the government should embrace it in its totality. No ifs, no buts, no maybes. And don't be hiding behind this concept of voluntary codes of conduct negotiated last February there with banks and the credit institutions. Absolutely nothing. The gap between voluntary and statutory basis is as wide as the gap between law, and it means nothing. You can drive a coach and forth through it. So I spoke that one of the most emotive things that can happen in anyone's life is to witness the spectre, or to look at the spectre of a repossession and the consequent eviction that takes place. It's absolutely horrific. It's horrific for everybody concerned, particularly the family that's involved. And it leaves an indelible and indeed an emotional footprint on one's mind and memory that never leaves. It's an experience, and it's something that one never forgets. And indeed, run parallel with that is something I witnessed myself. A whole family back in '65 emigrated and never come back. And then 33 years later, I sought them out myself and spoke to them. Young people that had 32 years earlier been in school with. And this spectre is raising its head again. And we would be in severe dereliction of duty if we do not address it. And that's why the government should embrace this motion here tonight. During the course of the NAMA debate, I said that one of the important points of NAMA is that it must end definitively the notion that housing is a speculative asset rather than a basic social need. And that's a debased approach that grew up, and has left it with about 50,000 people or more in the housing waiting list. Well, in many of our towns and villages throughout the country, we have thousands of unsold houses, weeds growing through the windows, whose builders await rescue by NAMA. And if NAMA is to have the support of the taxpayers to fund it, we must ensure the social dividend for the wider community, commensurate with the enormous sums of taxpayers' money necessary to fund it. And what is a great concern to us here in the Labour Party, and many people we encounter in the streets or our clinics, revolves around a significant and increasing cohort of people, especially young people, who pay exorbitant or unsustainable prices for their houses, and who now find themselves unable to meet their huge loan commitments, and increasingly find themselves in the zone of negative equity. People report to me that there is no form of NAMA for people who find themselves in that position. And there is nothing like NAMA to deal with that dilemma that these people now find themselves in. It would be a significant dereliction of the duty of this House if the banks were not required. To, as part of the conditions for them receiving the unprecedented injection of taxpayers' cash, to recognise the difficulties these people are now in, and to devise appropriate measures and schemes of arrangement tailored so to ensure that these people's homes will not be subject to repossession orders, and that the banks have a recognised and defined obligation in this regard, clearly set out by Deputy Lynch here tonight in a very eloquent and forceful fashion. It will be some kick in the teeth to the taxpayers and to the public to find that as soon as the President signs the NAMA bill into law, we are treated to an orgy or a frenzy of court applications for repossessions, because unfortunately people have defaulted on their loans. This motion is not about people who actually deliberately refrain from actually honouring their commitments. We all know there are people who actually engage upon that in that process. This is upon people who find themselves, their luck is out, they're in hard times, and that's why we have come along and support this. Now, I don't know whether the government has given clear any great recognition to this debate at all. I don't think the Minister who's responsible for this has entered the House. Minister Mansur is here. But where is the Minister who has actually taken this and who will respond in a positive fashion to this? We need to get people here on the floor of this House. This is a gaping wound that's going to actually widen and open wider. Because I do not trust the banks. As soon as the bill is signed, we will have a deluge. And let's be clear about that. They're all holding their powder. They're as cute as anything. Now again, and they'll have statutory backing. The Land and Conveyance Reform Act 2009 comes up on the 1st of December. And that legal proceedings dealing with mortgage repossessions can now be taking place now in the Circuit Court rather than the High Court. Now that will lead to speedy transactions and less costs, and that's good from the mortgagee's point of view. But it also gives less time for the borrower to find his or her feet. So you'll be in and you can be processed and gone out the far side before you know what's happening. Oh, 1 hour. We must focus upon assisting people to continue to live in their own home, What good will speedy repossession orders serve other than to transfer the burden to the state, who will have to find alternative accommodation for families through the Supplementary Welfare Assistance Scheme? We're already paying 550 million to that. And what is the logical or sensible thing selling or attempting to sell repossessed properties into a depressed or falling market when it's highly probable that the initial mortgage capital out there will not be redeemed? It's very easy for a credit institution or a bank to purport to comply with a code of practice, as Deputy Leader says, by merely sending out peremptory demands and engaging in paper processes, rather than proper full-on engagement with the borrower. Looking at interest-only repayments, roll-up interest for a period of time, extend the period of mortgage, develop a repayment schedule that suits the individual needs of the borrower. The big question revolves around the issue of who is an advocate in favour of the borrower when he or she finds himself. Remember, all those mortgage deed documents are drawn up by the banks themselves. They have every legal process behind them, real power. And here we are, the inequality of Ireland's provisions really loaded. The presumption of dominance is in favour of the banking institution. And we are the little people sitting at the table signing up. All is in favour of them. Deputy Leader has proposed that we should delve down to those and put this into abeyance and postpone it for a period of time. 24 months is a very fair period of time, and to give people a chance to get back on their feet. And concluding this, it needs to be statutorily backed, as the Code of Conduct is just that. It's voluntary. And requesting banks and building societies not to initiate repossession proceedings when a mortgage is in a certain number of months in default. I think it's time, Last Concora, that we adopt what the Deputy Leader has said here tonight. It's very important. He has proposed a mechanism in this regard which will help tilt the balance back in favour of the genuine borrower who has genuine difficulties at this point in time.